Good morning to our viewers in Nigeria and across Africa. Welcome to the conversation on TOS Television Network, your digital first and African news network. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Nigeria's federal capital city, Abuja. My name is Adesu Alsui.
And my name is Merciful Ajinama. Good morning, Adesua.
I think I always wait for Merciful to say good morning, Adesu. Good morning, Merciful. How are you doing?
Good. And you?
I'm very well, thank you. You look sharp as always.
Yeah.
Okay, before we kickstart the show proper, we'll be bringing you the quote of the day. Welcome back. I think Winston Churchill must have been a very, very optimistic person. I think every time I read a quote from Winston, it's always something about positive thinking, seeing the better part of something instead of just looking at it from the negative perspective. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think this particular one is more like, talking about if you're passing through a difficult experience, or you're just passing through a phase that you're not quite happy, you should just be positive minded. That at the end of the day, there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. So he's saying in every difficulty, there's an opportunity. So seize the opportunity in every difficulty.
So don't focus on the negative aspect of it. Don't focus on the challenge that you're going through. Just look beyond that and just see where the opportunity comes, or where the light, is at the end of that tunnel. I think I always say this. I always relate it to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm Nigerian. We always say there's a light at the end of every tunnel. Okay, we're going to go straight into development across Africa. And then starting from Nigeria, where the EFCC has arrested ex-Imo Governor Rochas Okorocha. TOS News gathered that the 7th senator was arrested after a 5-hour standoff with operatives of the EFCC at his private office in Abuja on Tuesday. The EFCC had in 2020 hinted of its plans to arraign the former governor for alleged embezzlement of public funds during his time as governor of Imo State. In June 2020, Usman Imam, the zonal head of EFCC in Port Harcourt, disclosed that he started the investigation of Mr. Okorocha when he was at the Enugu Zonal Office of the Commission, adding that the ex-governor would be prosecuted after investigation had been conducted. Imam added that the anti-graft agency froze about 7.9 billion in different bank accounts linked to Mr. Okorocha.
All right, move over. Still in Nigeria, talking about, the nurses embarking on a strike in Ogun State. Due to recent abduction of its members in Ogun State, the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Ogun Council, has embarked on strike. According to a statement jointly signed by the chairman of NANNM, Rosalind Solarin, and the state NMA chairman, Dr. Oladayo Ogunlaja, the strike began on April 13th. That was yesterday. The statement revealed that Ogun State government has not shown any commitment that could enable the release of their members. It also stated that they believed their lives and property were not important to the government. The statement reads, "The recent kidnapping of health workers after rendering their services to the good citizens of Ogun is so disheartening, repugnant and unacceptable. Recall that Dr. Oladuni Adetola and Mrs. Bangbose were precisely abducted on the 7th of April, making it 6 days in incarceration. Also, another dental therapist working at the government hospital, Ijebu-Igbo, was abducted today on her way to work."
I think this is what you get when citizens start to feel as though their well-being, like I said, their lives and property are not cared for. It doesn't bother the state. It doesn't bother the authorities. It doesn't bother the government at hand. So they begin to look towards alternative, measures. Look, since we're serving you, and then it doesn't look like you care about us. So this is what we're going to do. I mean, nurses, doctors just got back. They're still threatening that they want to go on strike. Now we're having nurses go on strike. It's kind of very sad. And in my head, I'm wondering, why are medical personnel, being abducted? Is it that they have, maybe the bandits or so?
They need people to care for them or something.
Injured, members or something, or they just want to be on the safe side. So whatever happens, we have medical personnel to handle or take care of issues. It's very shaky. Nobody knows what's happening. But I think they need to be made to feel as though, look, we care about you people, and we're doing everything that we can at this point to actually ensure that the abducted medical personnel are released or rescued, and then we also, you guys are we're looking towards caring, protecting you guys
prioritize
as well,
their life
prioritizing.
as well.
It's basically just prioritizing security at this point. I think that's what it is. I mean, we had when they said traditional rulers, state governors are the targets, and now we're seeing
Now we're
medical
seeing
personnel
medical.
as targets. So it's like it's going round. We don't even know what we're going to see.
We really do hope that the state government or Ogun State will do something about it, so we can have the nurses back to work, to treat people. Because really, if we're having doctors away from the hospitals, then we are at risk. The people, the patient are at risk of, one issue or the other, because they will not have people to care for them.
Nurses are as important as doctors.
Very important, really,
yeah.
very, very important. So we really do hope something's done about this and we move forward in Nigeria.
Exactly. Moving over to the next story, Nikon Insurance PLC, ICO Insurance, and other insurance companies have been summoned by the Senate Committee on Public Accounts over missing 17.4 billion pensions fund. TOS News gathered that the panel's summon was based on the 2016 report of the Auditor General of the Federation. According to the report, insurers have not been able to remit to the Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate, that's the PTAD. Speaking before the Senate Committee, the Executive Secretary of PTAD, Dr. Chioma Ejikeme, said that PTAD took over the assets and liabilities of the defunct pension officers without a formal handing over. On taking over, the directors were all underwriters to make returns and remit whatever amount is in their custody into a CBN dedicated account. Some of the underwriters responded to the request while some did not. The bank certificate of balances, accounting statement, 3 years financial statement and policy files requested by the federal auditor were not handed over to PTAD at the time of consolidation, it said. I mean, when you do, just going by what I read, it's like things were not properly done. And if you don't get things properly done, there's always going to be like misunderstanding and then confusion, loopholes. So it's just basically get things done properly so we don't have to be going reading stories such as this one.
All right. Still talking about Nigeria, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, has reiterated federal government's commitment to giving jobs to millions of young Nigerians. He made this statement at the opening ceremony of the National Gas Expansion Program Consultative Forum, as he assured that nothing less than 100 million Nigerians will be out of poverty through the implementation of National Gas Expansion Program. The minister stated that the Buhari's administration increased its commitment to industrializing Nigeria through gas utilization as he declared 2021 to 2030 decade of gas. The minister praised Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma, who he said played a vital role in the NGEP project. Uzodinma, who was represented by the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Paul Emezim, said the state would continue to join hands with the federal government in providing more jobs to the youth of the country.
Quite impressive, but in as much as we're looking towards providing more jobs, in the oil and gas sector, we should also look at diversifying the economy.
Yeah.
Because how sustainable is this?
How
We're looking towards a world that is moving away from oil and gas in the last maybe 20 years or thereabouts. So we should also be looking
to explore other different
explore other
sectors,
options. Because we wouldn't have you providing jobs for millions of young Nigerians and then in 10, 15 years they don't have jobs anymore because, the industry is no longer useful. So we should also look towards diversifying the economy, look away from gas, we should look at ICT, tourism, agriculture. Basically, there's so many sectors to be looked at. So in as much as we're going to be looking at gas, we should also looking at providing jobs, pumping money into all of these sectors and then providing jobs in all of those areas so we can have a balance with all of that. All right, that's so much you can take on, this segment of the conversation. We're going to go on a break now, and in that time, we'll be bringing you COVID-19 update from across Africa. Welcome back. So if you look at that table, you would see that we had like an increase in the number of cases from yesterday. I mean, today we're having almost 5 million, active cases, and then 116,000 number of deaths, and that's not encouraging. I'm not smiling today because I'm not encouraged by the numbers, and I would always say just take precautions, do what's needed, to protect yourself and the next person. Get vaccinated, protect yourself, wear your face mask, do everything that you need to do. I mean, Africa cannot afford a third wave of COVID-19 at this point. I mean, some countries are already experiencing a third wave, very devastating, and we're not even done with the second wave yet, so we can't be talking about the third wave. So just do what you need to do so that we don't even have to get to that part, and then you and the next person is safe. All right? Okay, so we're going to go on a break now. When we come back, we'll be taking you through newspaper headlines for this morning.
TOS TV Network mobile app is now available. You can now catch up on our breaking news, stream our programs live, watch out for the latest update on sports and politics as they unfold. You can also get notifications for our upcoming programs and events. All these on our TOS TV Network mobile app, available on Apple Store and Google Play Store. TOS TV News from Africa by Africans.
Being a journalist means in-depth analysis that unravels hidden truths, that question the status quo and fact-checks government.
These criminal elements hiding under the cloak of surveillance contractors are the APC elements.
Do you have facts to prove that? Being a journalist means waking up every day with a burning desire for peace, equity, and justice for all citizens.
We're being told that the choice you have is to take the lesser of two evils.
It means patriotism via the prism of objectivity and accountability. It means giving my platform to the masses to discuss issues that matter to them.
Some of them, if they bring budget, and the budget they lose. Some of them sleep. They're going to ask how much we are on. I have it.
Thereby shaping government policies and laws. My name is Osasu Igmeneja.
You're welcome back to the conversation showing on your digital first Pan-African news network, TOS Television. And don't forget, you can always be a part of it by following us across all our social media platforms at TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and stream our content live on our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. And don't also forget to follow and subscribe on our YouTube page, TOS TV Network. It's that time of the show where we'll bring you some of the major headlines for this country. And of course, today we'll be spicing up a little by going through some foreign newspapers as well. And this morning we'll be beginning with the Blueprint newspaper in Nigeria here from the very top. Access Bank overtakes FBN, rakes in 56.09 billion naira from e-business. That can be found on page 22 of the Blueprint newspaper. Underneath that story is Fire Guts Bodija Plank Market destroys 200 million naira property. And that can be found on page 14 of the Blueprint. Underneath the tag there is drama as National Assembly staff protest unpaid salary arrears. And the writer underneath the story says it is inexcusable not to pay workers. That's coming from Femi Gbajabiamila. And all of that can be found on page 6. Ex-Imo Governor Okorocha arrested by EFCC operators. That can be found on page 5. And the very obvious headline there is IPOB to Southeast youth. Embrace Ibubeago, join your ancestors. And we have 4 writers on that story. The first says security outfit formed to sabotage ESN. And the second is 2 kidnapped in Abuja, trips foil attempt at Plateau Varsity. And the third is Adeboye meet Erufai, says victory is in sight. And the last writer on that story is gunmen abduct female soldier, 2 others in Ibadan. All of those can be found on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. And underneath the picture of the day there, where we see Director General Industrial Training Fund and Director Research and Development Nigeria Air Force, in a roundtable meeting, signing a memorandum of understanding. We see Conshisha unsafe until murdered soldiers' arms recovered, coming from BNSG, and that can be found on page 8 of the Blueprint newspaper. And the last headlines for the Blueprint newspaper, the first is Bauchi to repatriate non-native prostitute. Marry off indigents, that can be found on page 5. 132 deaths per 1,000 live births in Nigeria unacceptable, coming from the federal government of Nigeria, and it can be found on page 14. Sun Trust empowers 100 female drivers with Hyundai Sonata vehicles. That can be found on page 22. And the last headline for the Blueprint newspaper this morning is talking about Action Aid. Rising debts may close space for public service delivery. And that can be found on page 23. Very colorful headlines, I must say, for the
Very
Blueprint
colorful.
newspaper.
You wonder why I'm laughing?
Why are you laughing?
So Bauchi State to repatriate non-native prostitute and marry off indigents. That one sounded very funny to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do they have numbers? Do they have statistics of who's who? Are they just going to bust into people? Like what measures are they?
See,
how are they going to do
when
that?
the issue of this story came out, and you know, I was checking my social media and saw some, you know, people, some Nigerians on Twitter tweeting, "Oh, is this possible? Can this even happen?"
Yeah.
First of all, it's funny. Yeah, we all get the motive and everything, but how true, how possible it is? Because prostitution is not really a thing yet in Nigeria. We've been struggling with it. Oh, sex worker, is it a legit business people can do and everything? And we'll be saying, oh, we've not really gotten the, you know, the whole view of what it is really. So now saying trying to carry out a census, is it even possible?
So they're going to carry out the census, right? And then people are going to come out and say, look, I'm a prostitute in Nigeria. I don't think anybody would do that. And secondly, I saw the part where they want to marry up. So the ones that are not from Bauchi State are going to be sent to their state for indigents
to go and
continue with what you're doing. And then the ones that are from Bauchi State are going to be married off. Really? Adults? You want to marry them off? How? Wow. Okay. I'm gonna.
That's why you should grab a copy and just
exactly.
Get
I want to see how that plays out, so I'm going to have to read up on that one. Okay, moving away from the Blueprint to the Daily Trust newspaper. I started from the very top as well. And the first story, or the first headline there says 9 bodies found inside valley in Cross River. And beside that, PDP set to reconcile Tambuwal, Kwankwaso, and others. And then the very gaping headline on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. 7 years after abduction, we want to see our daughters before we die. Chibok parents. 112 girls still in captivity. Nigeria yet to learn from Chibok tragedy. That's coming from Amnesty International. Most of freed 107 students yet to pass SSCE. And then others dropped out, got married. Those are the writers under that headline. And then just underneath the picture of the day where we see, you know, Muslim brethren breaking their fast at the National Mosque yesterday. Under that, JAM nullifies admissions offered by Uni Abuja and others. And under that, Canada denies Nigerian asylum for being ex-SARS operative. EFCC arrests Okorocha in Abuja. And then the last headline there says, Ganduje distributes resources to bolster free compulsory education. Those are the headlines on the Blueprint Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Well, move over to the business day. The business day is the last Nigerian headline we're taking, newspaper we're taking this morning before going to the foreign newspapers. And then just from the very top, we see the market monitor there. So to just grab a copy, get the statistics and about Forex and, you know, the internal reserves and everything, just data basically. The very gaping headline there is privatizing NNPC's pipelines can save Nigeria 59 billion naira yearly. And then the commentary says Chibok girls 7 years after. And the insiders counting on in-store transactions, Burger King births in Nigeria. That can be found on page 2, and that's all of it for the Business Day newspaper.
And the headline about privatizing NNPC pipelines might be really good, but I think I'm one of the few Nigerians that are of the opinion that privatization hasn't really done much for us in Nigeria.
It hasn't really done much
because
for us, yeah.
I know the power sector was privatized and I don't see any much difference. And I know that some part of the oil and gas sector was also privatized. We don't really
But I
see
really do
much.
hope we can come to a balance, you know, talking about the PPP, public-private partnership. Let government doing something in the private so we can see where
partnership
we can,
probably would work better than saying, okay, we're going to hand it over to the private sector to handle it. And then I don't really see much, so I don't know if privatization is what we should be looking at, you know, with the NNPC and all that stuff. All right. Moving over to the UK. Yeah, we have some newspaper from the UK this morning, and then starting with the Daily Mail. This one is on, you know, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. How on earth can William forgive Harry? That's Amanda Plattel writing that story, and you can find that on pages 8 to 9 of the Daily Mail. And then on the very gaping headline on the Daily Mail newspaper, Cameron Mandarin snared by lobbying scandal, revealed top civil servant allowed to work for Green Seal Board while still in Whitehall. And then the last headline on that one, as row erupts over Andrew's demand to dress as a full admiral at funeral. I think that's the funeral of, you know, the late husband of Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, you see there's Meghan Markle and Harry, you know, they have remained on the front runners of everything, basically. The internet's talking about and everything.
It's crazy. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the word crazy, but it's crazy how when anything pops up from, you know, the royal family, it has to be stopping.
That's why it's royal, yeah? That's why it's royal.
Yes.
All right, we move over to, you know, the iPaper, talking about the iPaper.uk. We begin from the very top. 6,000 medics quit NHS for overseas amid row over elderly parent. That can be found on page 10 of the iPaper. And underneath that story is discovering my grandparents' love letters, a time machine for family history. But who will read our phone messages in the future? Very interesting one there, can be found on page 35 of the iPaper. And we have the subversive and pioneering happy 10th birthday to Call the Midwife. That can be found on page 30. The very obvious headline there is talking about the vaccination and COVID-19 vaccines for under 40s in 6 weeks. We have riders underneath that. People in late 30s expected to be invited to book their jab appointments by end of May. And 18 to 29-year-olds set to be offered their COVID-19 vaccinations during June and July. Growing scientific support for use of different vaccines in first and second jabs if needed. And UK Vaccine Task Force scientist tells we are all pretty certain that mixed vaccines give good antibody responses. You might get an advantage because they might just broaden the immune response and make it a bit more effective, explains Professor Jeremy Brown. And then appeal for 1,000 volunteers to help with clinical trials in research that may shape policy. And the last writer under that story says 1 million university students in England told that face-to-face teaching can resume on 17 May. All of that can be found on page 7 to 8 of the iPaper. And then we see some headlines on the story there. We're talking about sport. Chelsea joined PSG in the semi-finals, and that can be found on page 54 of the iPaper. And talking about culture, Hogwarts to Hogs, Rowling's new book. To get that story there on page 3. And politics, David Cameron inquiry called into question. That can be found on page 4. And talking about money, fraudster left free to use stolen identity again. That can be found on the pullout section of the iPaper. And then just by the left-hand side under the puzzle section, talking about politics, want to know what will happen on 21st June? Look at Israel. The PM is, and that can be found on page 10 of the iPaper. Very colorful one, again.
Very colorful.
Like different stories.
Yes, I think the one that caught my fancy was the one about, you know, medics quitting for overseas, you know, and I'm like, okay, so it's not just in Nigeria. It's not just Nigeria, it's happening. You know, our medical personnel living, and then the other one where they said, who's going to read their phone messages in 10 years from now? I'm a sucker for handwritten letters and all that stuff, so I could really relate to that one. Like, yeah. So we should write more so that we can have memories and, you know, all of that stuff. Okay, that's the most you can take on the newspaper headline segment of the conversation. We're going to go on a break now. And when we come back, you know that I will be taking you through what's trending on social media. Welcome back. It's good to have you back on the conversation, and it's about that time where I take you through what is trending on social media. I really love to bring you this part of the conversation. And guess what has been trending? So Omoyele Showeri has been trending on social media, Twitter particularly, for the last 24 hours. Now, you know, Moyele Sowore, the Revolution Now convener and activist, he's currently trending after he was accused by another activist of pocketing the hashtag NSAS grant. Recall, the Feminist Coalition were also accused of doing the same earlier in the year. So there's quite a number of reactions trailing the fact that, you know, Sowore kind of, you know, embezzled, that's the word, or pocketing some of the NSAS grant that was released during the time. And so I'm going to take a few tweets to that regard. The first one is from @JeffPhillips1. It says, Sowore and his lawyer are just into grant rackets. Man was coming to do Revolution Now and stayed in an exquisite Radisson Blue hotel for weeks, but those ones that he uses their heads could not even ask questions. And then in response to that, somebody said, are you saying Sowore cannot afford Radisson Blue from his pocket? Okay, and then moving over to Call Me Rahila. She says, Yele Sowore, it's sad that you of all people could take advantage of my predicament. I went to prison last year, November, over NSAS, but you decided to apply for a grant in my name without informing me before, during, and after the application was made. And then this one is from @XA Great, and he says, first, it was Mochiva's alleged Bitcoin scam scandal, then Omojua, Ezekwesili and Effiong alleged Alexa Palava, and now Sowore alleged grant scandal. All those challenging Buhari are criminals. We await more revelations. And then in response to that, somebody says, undermining Nigeria comes with disastrous consequences for the miner. We warned them, but they didn't listen. Now, Sowore has come, you know, to respond to that in his own defense. He says, a response to Call Me Rahila. Call Me Rahila reached out to me after claiming a grant app was written in her name, and I have confirmed to her that nothing of such existed. Further, I volunteered to refund her if any grant was collected on her behalf without her knowledge. Without prejudice to any further action she will take, please note that this response is not intended as an attack at Call Me Rahila. She's been a committed member of our movement over these years and assisted me in the last 2 years in particular while I was unjustly detained. Thanks. Lastly, if anyone knows of any foundation that issued a grant on her behalf without her knowledge, kindly reveal it to the public so that she can get her rightful entitlement. I never applied for or received any grants in her name or on her behalf. What's your reaction to this?
Yeah, to every issue we talk about here in the morning on trending on social media, to every issue there must always be two sides of the story. People always have things to say about what has happened. I don't know how people keep on digging things and getting information about people and what has happened. But this, you know, the NSAS thing, it lasted for months. Yeah. And people, you know, spoke about the fact that, you know, the government was not doing this. We're looking for basic things of life that the government should do. But now the protest is somewhat over. It's not over. It's still, you know, it still comes on. It's a movement. It's a movement. Yeah. So
the protest is over.
It continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we've seen a different phase that there was an alleged, you know, will I call it misappropriation, or will I even call maybe received grant in someone's name? And I'm like, so this is like a different, what is really happening? Because Nigerians would start asking questions like, you are standing, you're a symbol of hope to an extent. You know, you're talking about revolution, and revolution means we're looking for things to get better. Change, really, that's what it means, change. So for someone to come and say, look, you collected money in someone's name, that is a different ballgame. That shows that the person is not accountable, is not transparent and everything. So we really need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, we need to get to the bottom, because Yele Sowore has come out to say, look, I know nothing about this. I mean, you and I have been pals for a long time. If anyone collected grants in your name, it wasn't me. So if you know anyone that did, he did say he collected monies, but he said that he had told her that he would return or whatever. So I think maybe there was some sort of conversation between both of them, and then maybe the other party wasn't pleased with what happened. And
Call Me Rahila was somewhat in the front.
Yes, on the front line. Yes, so she decided to come out and say, look, this is what's happening. It's sad that this is coming out at this time. I mean, because the NSAS movement, or the protest, was supposed to be the most transparent of all. It was for a good cause. Yeah, it was the young people decided that, look, we've had enough, and then we wanted a change, and then this is what we're doing, you know, to get this change. And then having to say some people were siphoning funds, and then just using the movement to their own personal interest is saddening. So I'm just hoping that this is just not what it is, because I know lots of people, like you said, yellow shower is like hope to some young persons. They look at him, he's young and he's, you know, combating, you know, the government at hand and saying, we don't like this, we want to change it. And then I feel like young people should come out and speak up. And then that was what the NSAS movement was about. And then having to have all of this at this time, it's not good.
No,
so we're going to see how this plays out. Like you said, there are two sides to a story, but I think there are three sides. The regular side, yellow side, and maybe what actually did happen that we don't know
what
about.
really happened.
And that's what I'm actually waiting for. That's what I'm actually waiting for, you know, to be exposed. That is how much we can take on, you know, what's trending on social media segment of the conversation. It's about that time where we go on that break that I like to call the most important break of all. And when we get back, we'll be bringing you the big story. Welcome back to the conversation. If you just joined me, don't forget you can be a part of the conversation across all our social media platforms. TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also subscribe to TOS TV on YouTube, as I always say, so you don't miss out on anything. Also look up our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. It's about that time where we bring you what Merciful calls the crux of the conversation, and that is the big story. And today on the big story, we'll be looking at how actualizable is the $1 to 1 Naira equivalent. The Naira was introduced on the 1st of January 1973, replacing the Nigerian pound at a rate of 2 Naira to 1 pound. That was the strongest the Naira has been since its creation and circulation into the Nigerian economy. From an exchange rate of 71 kobo in the 60s through to the 70s, the dollar to Naira exchange began to record incremental changes in the 90s. And today, the exchange rate is now an astronomical 382 Naira to a dollar, according to CBN figures, in the parallel market, but cost as high as 480 to 500 Naira on the black market. Now, economists have claimed the current exchange rate between the Naira and the other hard currencies as a true reflection of the nation's failing economy. However, the government's narrative is a sharp contradiction with its regular mantra being that we are on a steady drive to economy recovery. Now, joining us to discuss more on this is Professor Ken Ife, a development economist. Professor Ken, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Now, first of all, will the government's economic recovery plan had, you know, more value, you know, to the Naira as opposed to like what it is now against hard currencies like dollars, the pounds? We're talking about, the government is largely talking about economic recovery and growth plan. Do you think that would add any value to the Naira?
Of course it will, because otherwise things will get worse. And the Naira will just drift to 500 Naira to a dollar if not much happens. So growth is one thing, recovery is one thing, growth is another thing, and the dimensions of that growth is critical.
Yeah.
It has to be diversification of the economy, because what is going on in the economy is that about 90% of our foreign income, that is income in dollars, is coming from oil resources.
Okay.
The economy is not well diverse. Okay. And then also government revenue is about 50% coming from the same oil source. Now, that situation is beginning to change slightly, but it's not catching up even with the population growth rate and so many other things. So we need to have more coming to us by having more export to give more revenue. The economies that are smaller, much smaller than Nigeria's economy, but because they have a good balance of revenue, that is, they have about 50% of their income coming from, so they don't have, and if they take loans, it doesn't matter to them because they have enough foreign currency coming in to service the loans. But we have that dilemma that the amount coming in, not only that it is small, is unpredictable because of the fluctuations in the oil price and its commodity, and we don't have control over commodity. But if you look at South Africa, that the preponderance of the export is manufactured goods. If you're exporting cars, exporting finished goods, you have better control over your thing. And if you devalue, you actually increase your export because your goods become cheaper. You have more revenues coming in dollars. But we are not in that game at all. Instead, the reverse is the case, that whilst we are the biggest producer of oil and gas in Africa, we are spending a lot of this revenue coming from importing refined products. That doesn't make sense to anybody. So the first wisdom is to halve the export of your crude and refine the rest here. So at least you stop using your dollar to import refined product. Do you understand?
I do.
Then secondly, begin to roll back on export of crude. In fact, should export value-added products. In other words, have all these petrochemicals that are producing polythene and all of these products all from your crude and exporting those rather than export the raw commodity. There will still always be need for that because China and India are the biggest importers. They will still need them for their industries. So that would be, let's say, like 1/3 is being exported and 2/3 are being processed, 1/4 for our consumption. The others by way of petrol to neighboring African countries, that the door is now open, and then refined products going out. That will bring a lot of money. We don't have this kind of challenge with gas because our gas is getting money. And then we're also synthesizing gas products and selling those. So that can change. The agriculture is such a tragedy that whilst we employ 50% in agriculture, the agriculture has never risen to the challenge to export because we are not meeting the quality standards. For a start, 30 to 70% of what we produce never make it into the food chain because of post-harvest losses and all of that, and transportation and storage and all that, no processing capacity. But apart from that, we now have even more challenges around our food production footprint because you have conflict in all the 6 geopolitical zones. So meaning that it's shrinking. Our agroecological footprint is shrinking because of conflicts, all kinds of conflicts in the region. Then you have flood, destroy. See what flood did. Onions price rose by 400% because the place was flooded and many things. So it's so unpredictable now. So the way we counter it is to de-risk agricultural lending, which NISA is doing. The setting up of NISA over the 5 years changed the landscape. So now de-risking agricultural lending so that the banks can give credit to agriculture. Then the CBN has come in very strong way, over $1 trillion in agriculture, converting over 4 million subsistence farmers to commercial farmers so that they can actually produce quality product that can be exportable. Our problem is that what we're producing cannot be exported. And we need quality infrastructure across the whole chain to ensure that the quality of produce, the way it's processed, the way it's grown, the land where it's grown, and the whole conformity assessment requirements across the chain as it begins to move out of the country. You've got to maintain all that. Otherwise, it's just not going anywhere. So, and then you can't do anything about, we found that we are surrounded by Francophone countries, and many of them are up north there, where there is not only flood, but drought. So they depend heavily on Nigeria. I mean, I've been looking for the statistics, reliable statistics to tell us what exactly is leaving Nigeria. You can't, but one governor said 50 trailers go past his border carrying food to Nigeria somewhere. You know, that gives you an idea. If one governor is saying 50 trailers every day are moving crops, you can now imagine what it is with all our thousands of borrowers.
Professor, are you now saying if we de-risk the agricultural sector, it can be brought to par with the oil and gas, the way we leverage on oil and gas exporting?
Well, you know, one problem you get is that banks rush to give money to where they feel more comfortable. And they were giving it to oil services companies. So in 2008, we got hammered. And we have serious problem. We have to give 6 trillion naira to AMCOM to come and clean up the mess. Here, the banks are not lending to the agriculture sector because they face high risk. They don't know, and the people are illiterate. They don't know subsistence. They don't want to lend. So with the de-risking that NISA brought in, there was more. You know, they say, okay, 80% of the risk will take it. So the banks are now comfortable to lend. Then now CBN has set it up. Then CBN now put more money into agriculture, into Uncle Brewer's program. And NISA played a major part in that because you have to lead from the front. So he's heavily involved in the value chain, across the value chain. You know, not only pumping resources in and then showing good lending behavior. And then very, very low non-profit, non-performing loans, very, very low. They're over 70% of the loans given are recovered. And even the 500 billion used to set them up never even got touched. It's still sitting there and are posting profit and revamping the industry. So that's very transformative. And then what is more important is that you have this army of over 4 million farmers who were used before low yield products, all these things, producing things of non-standard. Now they are now commercial farmers because hybrid grains are being sent to them to plant. They are part of a supply chain, national and global supply chain. And you have anchors who are either prime anchors or exporters or retail chains or processors expressing themselves in the chain. So there is integration of these commercial farmers. So it makes sense. They have laid a solid foundation for this country to take off in agriculture. So it's just a matter of time. And then you have also seen growth in the last quarter. For the first time, for a long time, agriculture posted 3.6% growth ahead of population growth rate. That is remarkable. And we just want it to continue.
That's quite impressive. So going by what you said now, so are you saying that Nigeria's foreign exchange rate is actually truly a reflection of our economy at this time?
The exchange, no, it's not the only thing. The exchange rate is not the only thing at all, because the exchange rate is just the symptom. The things behind you is that you have very poor diversification. Only one item, monocultural economy, when you should have about 5 or 6 or 7. I mean, if you look at Cote d'Ivoire, look at the number of, you know what's it called, diversification index, is the number of products, that the number of sectors that are exporting. So in other words, if you have a shock on one sector, it doesn't destroy the economy. But we have only that oil and gas sector making the thing. When agriculture moves in, and Nollywood, for example, is also trying, but it's not getting the money. They are pirating their products a lot.
That's true.
And then you have export. You know, one of the reasons why we were at par before was that we have a lot of manufacturing capacity in Nigeria. The Volkswagen was being assembled here. The Peugeot was being assembled. Leyland truck. In Enugu, you have the Mercedes, Anamco. All these we're buying them, we're exporting them.
So what happened?
The tires were being manufactured here. It's all gone. When they've gone, all you have is 400,000 second-hand cars coming from Cotonou every year. And then you have 200,000 from Lagos port being imported. And we're importing everything, even spare parts. Even as we're assembling now, beginning to reassemble, we still have to build the parts to increase the local content. So, you know, it's just part of this challenge that we're having. Even our education system, again, is not even attracting people anymore. So what we have there, the standard has hit the ground. Before, around the same time we were talking about, with your second class lower, you get admission to most universities abroad to do your masters. But now, even with your first class, they're looking at you. They're just not sure. You know, they're sure how you came about it. You know, it's a totally different story right now.
Okay, so, but the big question remains, as an economist, looking at everything that you said and laid out, do you think that we can actually ever actualize $1 to 1 Naira?
Of course it's possible. It's very, very possible. One is that, as I said, we have to have a resurgence of value addition. Because it's no point. If you're in commodity export, forget it. You're going to be there for a long, long time. When you begin to add value to your mining, look at mining. We have virtually any known mineral in Nigeria, and about 44 of them in mineable quantity. South Africa is striving with only about 5 of the minerals, accounting for nearly 40% or more of their GDP. That's not just, but we have everything. We have everything. With the structured mining and big mining companies left the country during the war, and many of them haven't come back after that. All you have a large expression of artisanal miners, and to control them is palaver, and you know what's going on in Zamfara State. So that's the symbol of it. And many of the mines, like the lead, the coal, all of them, they've been abandoned. So we're going to get back to that. But it's not just about mining raw materials and export. No. You have to beneficiate them. You have to refine them. Then you get value. Even the summer gold, if we refine these golds and then use them as foreign reserve to replace dollar, you're launching Nigeria in a different planet. I'm telling you. Then the agriculture has to up their performance. We are number 2 in the export of oil. And then there are oil derivatives, many of them. So we need to get back. Even the plantations are 50 years old, 60 years old. We're going to start replanting. We're not planting anything. You have cocoa that has built the first television in Africa, and then build a multi-story building in Ibadan. Where is it? The cocoa, if you look at all the commodity exporters of cocoa, they are like 10% of the value chain. The other 90% is the people you sent it to in Belgium to process. You know, it's not working. It's just not working. And then education, we're doing very well in education. Look at our diaspora bringing in $26 billion every year. They can increase that to $100 billion if the conditions are right. And that means influx of dollars. These are the things that will, generate sources of, to diversify the economy and bring down the, look, tourism, medical tourism, over $1 billion every year going somewhere in India for treatment. When if you go to New York, we have more Nigerian doctors in New York than in any one region, or even two regions put together. Those are our human resources. That's where they are. They're not here. But they don't have to be here for us to get the value of their scale.
Yeah. Okay, having said all of this, before we let you go, what role do you think Nigeria, because Nigeria has like the largest population in Africa.
And the largest economy.
The largest economy. So what do you think, what role would Nigeria's population, what role can it play in all of this?
Our population?
Yes.
The population is the driver. You see, let me tell you something. If Coca-Cola wants to build a new modern plant, it will be about $250 million. Now, where would they want to put that decision? They want to go to Nigeria. Because where is the country? If big investment, $1 trillion, $1 billion, they want to come to Nigeria because they would want to put this biggest factory where the population, at least, would guarantee 40% of what they're producing, or 50%. Then the other ones, they will begin the adventure of where do you send it to Africa. They will not take it and go and put it in Benin, where the population is only 10 million. Or put it, because Nigeria could close the border. And then all these things they're producing will sit there. So you think that they don't know what they're doing. So major decisions will come here because we're a resource-rich country. And that means two things. It means that they can invest heavily on our mining, they can invest on our petroleum products, because we have them. They don't have to import them to process them here and they re-export them. No, we have them on the ground. Then we have the population to buy most of what they have produced, let alone export. So it's a different equation when people want to invest substantial amount of money. They will be looking for here. Or the next they say, okay, they go to South Africa. But South Africa is a mature economy in decline with a small population, 1/4 of Nigeria's population. It's an advanced economy. Infrastructure is there, but it's a mature economy in decline. Nigeria is just a big elephant with huge resources, big population. If you just know how to do business, very poor infrastructure. But if you can find your way and know how to do your business there, you'll be smiling all the way to the bank.
Okay, I like how you said that. So we have the resources, we have the numbers, we have all of that, but we're not attracting these investors, right? So what can we begin to do as a country to attract?
Well, we're in a security. Nobody wants to come and drop his investment here and die in your soil. The second one is infrastructure. If they want to invest that $250 million just to build that factory, they don't want to spend half of that money in building the infrastructure, road, access road, water that they will need and all that stuff, and then the whole money finishes in the process. Do you know what I mean? And then face all this transportation problem. We haven't got a working rail line that can move things, because rail is the cheapest form of transportation of big volumes of goods over long distances. We have a problem with that, and that would make a big seismic change in the whole transport infrastructure in the country, and save the roads as well. Then the roads are death traps, as you know, and then armed robbers are on the road, everybody's on the road, kidnappers are on the road. The road is so they don't like that. So they want to put their money and start earning tomorrow, rather than put their money and looking for where their money has gone and then exposing themselves to all kinds of security threats in the process. So these are just some of them. And then, of course, will you believe that they're looking for the skilled workforce? I mean, this is just how bad it is, that we don't even have skilled workforce.
We don't?
Because what we are producing, the skill set of what we are churning out from the universities and technology, don't actually match what the employers need. Have you actually asked some of the graduates to write what they're saying on paper? They can speak fantastically. They tend to put it in writing. Then you start stumbling on their words, and spelling is, And if you see from the text they send, you think that they're just abbreviating it. It's just how much they know. That spelling is wrong. It's not abbreviated phonetic. No, they can't spell the words.
What's the problem?
The problem is that the education system is failing us. We're just not producing the right, and there's no connection between what we're producing in this classroom and what the industries actually need. And then you have hundreds of research institutes doing research, identifying good things from the economy, all right, from the bioeconomy. But there isn't a mechanism for knowledge transfer partnership between industry and academia and government to take that product of their, help them get intellectual property protection there and carry it with some kind of funding into incubation, into processing, into manufacture, into export, into the market, or even that mechanism is not there. And the funding framework is also not there. So how do you fund research, outputs of research? You haven't got the funding. So, we have all that stage to do. But we're changing all that in the new development plan, the new medium plan development. We've planned for that.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ken. So, in a nutshell, education, infrastructure, diversification, if we get all of that right, we can, $1 to 1 naira is possible.
Oh no, it's very, very possible. Very possible, without a doubt.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Ken, for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure to have you. And thank you guys for sticking with us on the conversation. Do not forget you can be a part of the community, TOS TV Network, across all social media platforms. And it's www.tostvnetwork.com. That's our website. And of course, check us out on YouTube, TOS TV Network. And don't just look up, subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. My name is Adesuwa Osui.
And my name is Merciful Ajinimo. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.